Department staffer who worked on Hillary Clinton's private email server. The Washington Post reporting this morning. Brian Pagliano set up the server at her New York home in 2009 before he was hired by the State Department. Want to bring in former McCain campaign advisor Boris Epshteyn and Gordon and Reese attorney Misty Maris. Good to see you both. Thank you so much for joining us. What does this tell us that now Pagliano has been granted immunity and is going to be talking to the feds?
It can't be a good sign, right? Why would he be taking immunity if he didn't have something to offer? Why would they give it to him if he didn't have something to offer? So this cannot be a good sign for Hillary Clinton, and it comes at the worst possible time. She didn't do as well as Super Tuesday as she expected, and there's another big roadblock for her campaign.
Misty, how do you see it?
Absolutely. As far as the DOJ is concerned, they grant immunity to witnesses they think will be good for the prosecution. So this means they think that Pagliano has some sort of information that's going to be critical to their investigation. It's very often that they grant immunity to these lower-level people to get the big fish at the end of the day.
We know that they want to talk to her aides, but what comes out of that, Sandra? I mean, do you think there's something that is going to take a real turn here in this case?
Well, this was a huge turn here. Ted Cruz went on the Kelly File last night immediately to respond to this, and he called the latest developments ominous. He said it means the process is moving to a whole new level. I'll remind you of Ted Cruz's legal background, and he said that the legal jeopardy is getting greater and greater. Loretta Lynch on Fox News in an interview with Bret Baier said that there's still no deadline on this investigation, so we don't know where they're going to get with this in the election year. But this is bringing up the question, will Hillary even make it to November?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the important things to take away from this email server scandal is that we aren't even seeing the worst of it because she destroyed it. She only gave us the emails that we want us, that they were able to let us see, right? And they've completely been obstructionist because what did they do? They didn't give us the electronic files. They printed it out and delivered them in crates. I mean, God knows what's on there. But if Petraeus actually got justice, you know, somebody's got to. Somebody's head has to spin. And
this is the point that a lot of people make, that David Petraeus, his whole life was turned upside down, and he was basically looked at as being indicted. I mean, having major legal issues, and he did. His infractions were much lower.
Yeah, she's done 10 times worse. I mean, and one of the situations here is, of course, he's got to get immunity because somebody's head's going to roll. And this guy, it's good that he actually did that because he's got intimate knowledge, and somebody's going to have to pay the price.
Sandra mentioned Ted Cruz last night on the Kelly File. I want to play this soundbite, get your take on this. Listen to this. This is Ted Cruz last night on Fox News.
This is an ominous development for the Clinton campaign and for Democrats as a whole. This suggests that the investigation is moving to a whole other level. She is going to be a badly wounded candidate, and if we nominate a strong Republican nominee, we're going to win this general election.
Do you think this helps in that regard? Does this actually mean something for the election?
This is the first time I've agreed with Ted Cruz in a while, and I agree with him on this. We do need a strong Republican. It's not going to be him. It'll be Donald Trump. But we do need a strong candidate that will beat her. This absolutely helps Republicans in the general. It sets us up to run against a candidate who's going through the same ordeal that Petraeus went through, if not worse. And you then look at somebody who's going to get indicted, whether it is before the election or after the election. How could the American voters put somebody in office who's facing that kind of issue? And the point is, what she did is so easy to explain. And the old Lee Atwater adage, if you can explain it in 10 seconds, do it. It's very easy. She put confidential files on her private server.
Yeah. And Boris makes a great point. An indictment is definitely not out of the question, and in fact, likely. Because when the FBI and DOJ are probing with this type of vigilance, looking for all these aides granting immunity so they can get more information for their investigation.
I would push back on that because look at what happened with the IRS. Nothing happened. I mean, these attorney generals don't care. I mean, the IRS was completely blatant. I mean, like, okay, our server blew up. Sorry. Oh, don't you have a backup server? Oh, on the way here, it spontaneously combusted, and nothing happened.
Ridiculous. Using your legal expertise on this, walk me through, now that he has been granted immunity, reminding you that this is the aide that actually put the server in her home.
Right.
What sort of questions is he going to be asked?
Oh, my goodness. Well, not only did he put the server in her home, he also maintained the server throughout the time that she was using this email address. So he is going to be asked every single question, and I think they're going to be focusing on the motive and what the logistics surrounding actually getting that server in the home as opposed to outside of the actual government
This could be the Pandora's box. that opens this whole investigation, completely blows it wide open.
Because the conversation will come up, what went on, why did she want the server in her home?
Definitely.
And, so it will be clear
Every
she was
detail.
trying to hide.
Here's a question we haven't asked yet. What is she hiding, right? What was she hiding? Why did she have the server in her home? Why did she not want it out there? Why did she not want it secure? What is the reason behind it? What's on there? We don't know about.
That's assuming there was intent. Right?
I mean, listen, she had to put it in her home. Of course there's intent, right? There was an intent.
Intent to hide something.
To have an outside
Right.
server. So
And
why else would you do it?
Because meeting with her
we have to
team.
stick to what she's saying, and she's saying she did this for convenience.
But we don't have to believe her, right? It's the Clintons. So maybe we have a long history of not believing the Clintons.
I'm just making sure
Well,
both sides
to
are
your
there.
point, though, Pagliano is going to know about those conversations that surrounded putting this email server in her home and why, what type of security she was asking for. It's going to be very telling what he has to say, which is why the DOJ goes straight for him. Let's get immunity on this guy so he can testify without any issue.
Let's take a step back. I'm involved in the finance industry. I run a broker-dealer. Everyone knows under FINRA rules, you have to use broker-dealer email. If I started using my personal email and avoiding my broker-dealer email, there would have to be intent. I'd have to have a reason to do it. If I did it once, maybe a mistake.
You would have to
Twice,
explain
maybe
it.
an oversight. But if I did it all the time and had my own personal server, I'd be kicked out of the industry.
Well, yes,
she should be kicked out of her industry. That's politics.
Sid Blumenthal as well, because the State Department didn't want him anywhere around. And here she is, Secretary of State, and she was corresponding back and forth and getting personal advice from him.
Right. Right.
And you got her number one aide, Yuma Abedin, who was working both for her and for lobbyists and for personal contacts and for
So are you
private
still saying
individuals.
that there should have been
Right.
And the State Department.
I mean, we talked about it for so long, Maria, that, whether or not there should have been a special prosecutor assigned to this.
Yeah, well, that's the key. I mean, why hasn't there been a special prosecutor, an independent counsel of some sort to look at this?
Well, it could be the Obama camp not wanting to fully
They're
hurt
protected.
Hillary.
Yeah.
But listen, if Obama wanted to help her, she wouldn't be in the position she is now. There has been the slow drip of news time and time again. So the administration is not fully on her side. I think that stems back to a personal vendetta, going
sure.
back to the 2008 campaign.
Misty, go through the timeline now. What do we need to look at to get a sense of where this heads next?
Well, right now, there is no timeline for the government. They have unlimited time to pursue this case. So right now, we're going to see the FBI continuing a vigilant investigation of Hillary and her aides. I wouldn't be surprised if this didn't happen with other people in her camp,
So
lower level.
You think they're going to look at some other aides and say, look, we're going to grant you immunity.
Absolutely.
We need to know what went on.
Right here, the FBI is looking for any piece of information. They're determining whether or not a crime was committed, and they're levying a case so the DOJ can prosecute. So they're going to talk to anybody and everybody that has any information about these instances.
Well, crime was committed. Obviously, if some guy's seeking immunity, that means they had charges on him.
Well,
That's
innocent
not
until proven
necessarily
guilty in this
true.
country
Yeah.
still,
The DOJ can request a grant of immunity for any type of proceeding. So it could be another congressional proceeding. It could be a court proceeding. It could just be in exchange for his testimony. Doesn't necessarily mean that he committed a crime.
So maybe this
It's just
isn't
that
as
we
serious
won't
as we think
prosecute
then.
you
Right.
if in the course of your testimony we
It
find out
encourages
you
him to
did.
speak up, obviously,
Absolutely.
because he knows that there's limited downside.
Well, and let's take a step back, because last September, when he did testify, before he took the fifth on everything,
Right.
and his
That
lawyer
looks really
said
bad.
it's going to be a dark day before he gives you even a sneak peek into what he knows, unless he's granted immunity.
Right.
The reason being, you waive your Fifth Amendment privileges once you get out there and you
In the
start
court
telling
of
your
public
story.
opinion,
Got it.
she looks guilty,
Yeah.
right? That's the key. In the court of public opinion, and right now in election year, that matters the most to the voters. This looks like she's very guilty. She has somebody who set up the server, asking for immunity, saying before he wouldn't give anything. Now he's going to open up. What's going to be there? We're going to find out.
Yeah.
And the government does seem to be moving on this. They could have slow-footed it. They could have done this after the election in terms of immunity.
She looks
but they
really
didn't.
guilty when she wore that orange jumpsuit to say she did nothing wrong. Do you remember that?
Misty, Boris, good to see you both.
Thank you
Thank you so much, Misty Mara.